Hello and welcome to the Womb Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar, and today I wanted to talk with you about prioritizing womb wellness and how this is a radical revolutionary act, both on a personal level and on a greater societal level. So, and how it really feels like a strong thing to do, and sometimes quite difficult thing to do because it is so revolutionary. So I've been working with several of my clients lately on this on a personal healing note, and I wanted to start with that. Um, I've had been working with several clients on an ongoing basis towards gradual lifestyle and nourishment, self-nourishment, and self-care changes to move towards greater womb wellness. And there comes a point in the process where one might feel that, gosh, I've done this and I've done that, and I've added this herbal protocol into my lifestyle, and I have changed this dietary thing, and I've done this meditation this many times over the last 3 or 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be. And why am I still having these disruptive womb symptoms? And by disruptive womb symptoms, I mean debilitating migraines, for example, or endometriosis and severe menstrual pain, or no menstruation during the fertile phase of life, for example, and not being able to get pregnant because of that, infertility because of that. And the list goes on of all the kind of the ways that our womb becomes unwell and either is the source of a lot of pain, whether that's physical pain or the emotional pain, say, of not being able to have a baby when that's something that someone really wants. And it could be in all a whole variety of different types of symptoms. For me, it's been energetic, not having the energy that I need to live my life. And so there's a thing with the adrenals and the endocrine system and the hormones that is involved in those energy levels. And so that even more minor womb symptoms can be quite debilitating. And also for me, that energy, that whole system then also shows up as painful body structures. So joints, back pain, joint pain can become debilitating and not make it so that we can't do the things that we want to do in our lives. And so these debilitating or just life disrupting womb symptoms, meaning we don't get to go and do the things we want in our life, whether we have, whether we just need to go to bed for 4 days because we're in so much pain, or we can't do the things we want to do. And it's very easy in that circumstance to then be angry and upset at the womb or our bodies, or both, for giving us that pain, for making us stop, for preventing us from having what we want, seeing the womb or our bodies as the one to blame or the culprit, as something separate than us, and that we can point the finger at and be mad at for not giving us what we want. However, and this is what I continue to remind myself and my clients, is who is responsible for caring for that womb and for that body. And when something is not working in a system, it's up to the different components of that system to report to the one in charge about what's not working and bring a message of saying, look, this isn't working. Something about the way the whole system is running. And so that whole system includes our whole lives, and our bodies, and the health of our bodies is a direct result of the whole system of our whole life, and all the choices that we've made in our lives, all the things that have been outside of our realm of choice. So a lot of things during our childhood that we grew up with, a lot of the training and programming that we received as children and are now running our lives upon, systems that we're running our lives upon. We didn't necessarily choose them, but now as adults, we get to choose them. We can either choose to continue to run those patterns, or we can choose to change them. And we're in charge of that now as adults. And it's not always easy to do, but it is our responsibility to choose a lifestyle that results in us being as healthy and happy as we can. And our wombs are very good at giving us strong messages about whether or not we're doing that. So womb ailments are a very clear sign that some structure or way that our life is happening is not supporting us to be healthy and happy, and is not supporting our optimum health. So our womb health is a vital sign, just like your heart rate, your blood pressure, okay? Your breathing is a vital sign. So if somebody is really ill and they go to the doctor, these are all things that the doctor checks. Now, womb health and our menstrual cycle is definitely a core vital sign. And yet for a long time, many generations, doctors have been neglecting womb health as a vital sign. And the more we are awakening to our feminine power and the importance of the womb, the more we're realizing that the womb is actually a vital sign that needs to be looked at as a sign of our vitality and our overall health. It's a core organ that, yes, you can remove it and go on living. So unlike the heart, we don't depend on it for life, but it is a core sign. Its health is a core sign of our vitality and our overall health, because our whole body is designed to be able to reproduce and to be able to create a new human life. So all of our symptoms are centered on, all of our systems are centered on being healthy enough and strong enough to do that function. And everything orients towards protecting and nourishing the womb, just like a plant. If it's under stress, it's going to send all of its energies to that flower and seed producing process. It's the same with our bodies. It's just part of biology. A prime directive of our biology is to carry on is to proliferate our species. And so that womb is a main priority for our bodies. And if if the systems in our bodies are not nourished enough, and whether it's the physical symptoms, our emotional systems, our social systems, because all of these systems are essential for reproducing another human being. Our emotions are an essential part of our vitality. And I might be speaking contrary to some myths that are out there, that emotions are a sign of weakness, and if we could just get rid of emotions, we would all be better off. These are some common mainstream ideas about emotions, that emotions are disruptive and detrimental, when that's not the case at all. Our emotions are a key component of our ability to have relationships, which we rely on in order to have healthy societies. Humans are social beings, and healthy societies rely on emotions for us to guide us in healthy relationship. And so we need to have emotional wisdom for our healthiest, happiest selves. And when we try to remove emotions from the picture, we get into all kinds of trouble health-wise. And many major health ailments can be traced to emotional ailments, where we're trying to not feel emotions or disregard the emotional realm. So some even say that we have an actual emotional body that's incorporated in and merged with our physical body, as well as people say we have a spiritual body or an energy body. And when you start to get into holistic healing, where you're healing the whole being, the whole person, you start to recognize these different bodies and how they come into play. We can start to feel them. And so our womb, when we have a womb ailment, like some of the ones I described earlier, it's a sign that something's out of balance in one of these bodies: the physical body, the emotional body, the energy body. And that could, and so in order to heal a womb ailment, especially a strong one like no menstruation, for example, it takes a lot to stop a woman from menstruating. Our wombs naturally will continue to menstruate even under the most strenuous circumstances. And so to get a woman to stop menstruating altogether, it takes a lot of disruption in the natural healthy system, whether that's overload of physical toxins. One thing that often does it is women moving so far into the masculine realms and rejecting the feminine realms that it shuts down the womb. Only valuing things in masculine realms, rejecting things like emotion that have been relegated to feminine realms. And so it takes a lot also, to have strong pain symptoms and inflammation that causes migraine headaches or menstrual pain and endometriosis. Endometriosis means that the endometrium, which is the inside lining of the womb, has migrated out the womb to other places. So sometimes it's out on the outside of the womb. Sometimes it starts to embed itself into other organs, and it starts to adhere other organs to each other because it's between organs, but it's still responding to the same rhythms as the womb. So because of the hormones going through the whole body. So when the womb is menstruating, those pieces of the endometrium are trying to menstruate, even though they're no longer inside the womb. And it causes all kinds of pain and discomfort, and, you know, it's not a good thing. And it's a very intense thing. It takes a lot to get that to happen, that level of disruption. And so that a lot probably started happening early on. And the way that we've been working with childbirth or treating childbirth for generations starts that system, these systems of being built of ways of living that are unhealthy and unsupportive to optimum human health at conception. You know, we're designed to be conceived in a moment of pleasurable, orgasmic union between human beings, consensual, pleasurable union, where there's a system set up, a social structure and system to support the gestation, birth, and upbringing of this child. And more often than not, in our current society and where we're at as a species, that is not happening. More often than not, you know, the sexual act of conception is not mutually orgasmic, may not even be consensual, may not even be mutually pleasurable, and may not even be in a relationship of mutual respect and regard and care for each other, where the mother feels fully supported. May not, most likely not that. Most mothers feel unsupported, undersupported, depleted. The amount of work that goes into mothering a child, gestating and mothering a child, is tremendous. And our societies support this very little. And this differs around the world. Some societies still have a support, you know, a communal support, community support of pregnancy and childbirth intact in various ways. But I live in the United States, and it is abysmal here. One of the main reasons I've chosen not to have children in this life, because I see how depleted moms get. And it's amazing that some moms are able to miraculously pull energy. And I feel this is one of our womb superpowers, is just being able to connect to an infinite source of energy and to be able to raise children despite this lack of support from our society, even though that's how we would be optimally healthy and happy. So it's no wonder that women get so depleted that the womb starts to get tired and produce all kinds of symptoms, especially with the different strategies that we're using to deal with this. So, you know, trying to bring that womb power into other functions of the body. That's kind of like what endometriosis is about. Going so far into the masculine realms of doing things in very masculine ways and rejecting anything feminine to try to harness the power that seems to reside there, and the recognition and the success financially and the support of society that does reside there, getting that from in that way. But then that neglect of our feminine self, or that twisting of our feminine power, results in these painful and difficult ailments in the womb and in our overall systems, health systems. And so this state of affairs where a person has one of these ailments has been in the works for their entire life. So they may be in their 30s or their 40s. So for 30 or 40 years, if you've been living in this system that is not supportive of your health and well-being, that system is deeply ingrained. And it may go back farther than that and longer than that, especially if you say, oh yeah, my mom had this thing too, and my grandma and my great grandma. It could go back generations. So this is a deeply ingrained pattern of life that you're in, that you might be in, that produces this state of unwellness in your womb. And your womb and our wombs, we might not have had as much of that unwellness earlier on in our lives, but as we get older, every month the womb is trying to menstruate and trying to do it and gets more and more exhausted, more and more unwell with the whole systems of our lives. So that includes nutrition, food, how we nourish ourselves physically. That includes how we are nourishing ourselves and relating, giving of our energies and receiving energies from others in our relationships. That includes our priorities in our lives, how we spend our time. And so all of those things need to be looked at if we're going to heal these womb ailments. And they need to be looked at and addressed with focused attention, potentially over a long period of time. And one of my healing mentors, an herbalist, when I was first learning about herbs, when addressing the question of how long do I need to do this herbal protocol in order to have the healing results that I want. And she always said, and it makes so much sense to me, look at how long it took you to develop this illness or how long you've had this illness. And with the womb ailments like this, it's often since first menarche. But you could say that it was going on even before first menstruation and that it just presented when you started menstruating. So it could be 20, 30 years. And she said, so give yourself at least half that time, half as long as you've had this ailment, of doing whatever healing protocols, whether it's an herbal protocol or a combination of other protocols. So and not only that, but something might not be complete. You may do one part of a healing protocol for a period of time, and it addresses some aspect of it, but not the whole thing. So you need to add something more to it, and that period of time of looking at what's really working and what's giving some progress, and a lot of people might get one aspect of it and then give up on it after 6 months saying it's not working when they didn't address another aspect that needed to be addressed in collaboration with that thing. And then they come and say, oh, I've tried everything and nothing's working. Well, you haven't tried everything probably all at once, and you haven't, necessarily tried everything, because there's a lot of therapies and ways of nourishing ourselves that were lost to us and suppressed that are only now being rediscovered and relearned and remembered. And how long did you try those things for? And how much this is the big question right here. How much have you been willing to really change some of these other aspects of your life, particularly the relationship dynamics, and how much energy you put out to others versus how much energy and care and concern and that you receive back? And this is the biggest one for most women, myself included. Because society supports women completely giving themselves away, allowing everyone in their lives to completely deplete and drain their energies with all of their needs and demands, without turning around and giving back to women. And it's the same relationship we have to Mother Earth as a species, of taking and taking and taking and exploiting the resources until they're all used up and completely toxifying, leaving toxic waste in our wake as we go. And this is the same thing that happens for women in most of our relationships. And so it's up to us to say, just like Mother Earth is speaking up and saying, this isn't going to work, right? And our bodies are speaking up with health issues, infertility, all these things that I see as sort of epidemic, as a collective body response to this overall lifestyle. And it's up to us to say, you know what? It stops here. We can't go on ignoring these signs of unwellness or just sort of putting a Band-Aid on the top of them and trying to make it feel better so we can carry on living the same lifestyle that is what produced the pain in the first place. So you might be able to get a medical treatment or an herbal treatment that alleviates your symptoms temporarily. But if you go back and have the same system of relationships and the same system of energy output in relation to energy input, what you're giving out versus what you're receiving and how you're being nourished, and that same imbalance where you're putting out a lot of energy and not being nourished and appreciated and however nourishment on all levels that you need to match your energy output or even surpass it, then those symptoms are either just going to move to a different place in your body, especially in the case of hysterectomy. A lot of women, live this pattern long enough that their wombs are finally so sick that they just get them removed. But then that pattern is still there. And it needs to it shows up in some other place in the body. That depletion, since we don't have the womb giving the message anymore. So, and if we still have the womb, then, I've had several clients come to me saying, I've done all these interventions. Why do I still have this? And there's this feeling of anger and frustration at the body for not doing what we want. Well, the body doesn't lie. It's telling us that something is severely out of balance in our life and needs to be addressed. And we either need to get the courage to address it, and often it takes a tremendous amount of courage in our relationships. I can speak from my personal experience. I have a very dear, loving husband, and he was raised in this patriarchal society with all kinds of wounding from the masculine side of things that makes him unable sometimes to generate his own energy, his own self-soothing. He's in the habit of looking outside of himself to get support for his own inner processes. And I'm in the habit of giving him that support all the time, whether I feel up to it or not, whether I'm fully nourished or not. And I'm also in the habit of disregarding, just like all of us, the needs of my menstrual cycle and where I am in my menstrual cycle and how I might need to nourish myself differently at different times in my cycle. And I'm developing, but it's challenging to develop the habit of paying attention to my cycle because nothing in society supports that. And that's why we created this womb-centered healing temple, so we can support each other to do that. Paying attention to my cycle, understanding from my own inner wisdom and also the wisdom that we're gathering together and remembering together. What are the different types of things that are deeply nourishing and replenishing to me at the different phases of my cycle? And one thing that I know for sure, the phase of my cycle right now that has the most symptoms of depletion is right after menstruation. You know, I've been focusing in on different phases of the cycle for the past number of years that were producing different symptoms. It used to be that I had PMS right before menstruating, and I focused in on how can I nourish myself at that time. And then it was, first it was during menstruation, and then it was prior to menstruation, and now it's just after menstruation. How can I nourish myself there? Because that's when my emotional symptoms come up the strongest, where I'm feeling the most like, get me out of here. I just want to go live on a tropical island by myself. And so what I've been learning how to do is to say and educate my husband, and as well as myself, about what I need during these different phases of my cycle. And remembering to look ahead and plan ahead for all the different phases of my cycle and what I might need at that time. So that means when my husband says, hey, there's this opportunity of doing an extra thing at work at this time on this date, will you be able to support me with that? And if I look at my calendar and see that it's that phase of my cycle when I know I feel more depleted and I need to really nourish myself, I need to be able to say, no, actually, look, this is where I'm going to be at my cycle. And remember last month when I didn't get the nourishment and support that I needed, it was a mess. Oh, yeah. So it's just this process of him seeing how these things correspond and me seeing how it corresponds to the different phases of my cycle, and making significant changes in my life, not just going on autopilot, planning ahead and you know, because I don't necessarily feel the depletion physically. I get up in the morning and I might be inspired about something and I'm ready to go and I want to go do all that stuff. I have to stop myself though, because I remember that when I did that last time and I didn't take the rest that I need during menstruation, then by the time I'm in that 2 weeks after menstruation, I'm really depleted and it's really difficult for me to get up and going again. And then when my husband comes home and wants to talk to me about whatever's going on inside of him that he wants my support with, I can't be there for him. And then he doesn't like that. And then it gets into this whole emotional conflict between us. So we're becoming more aware of that and the importance of that through me pointing it out to him and saying, you know, this doesn't happen every week. It happens the same time every month. And this is why. And this is what I need in order to remedy that. And I need nutrients, regular herbal nutrition, and specific food nutrients and herbal nutrition. And I've already cleaned out my diet of any kind of toxic stuff. Little chocolate, dark chocolate is the biggest thing that some would say might be a no-no. But I don't eat red meat. I don't eat meat industry meat of any kind, even organic. I don't eat chicken or meat. I eat fish, and there may be some toxins in wild fish from the toxicity in our ocean, but I also supplement with herbs and seaweed to clear out those toxins on a regular basis. And I eat only healthy eggs from healthy chickens. So pretty much not from the store and not very often. So local families that raise their own hens or ducks even. Sometimes I'll get eggs from there. And then fruits and vegetables, many of which I grow myself. So I'm already getting the highest quality food nutrition one can have, supplemented by whole lots of different herbs, and there are specific ones that I'm getting more and more regular with because I grow them myself and I have that relationship with them, and I know that they're customizing medicine and nourishment just for me. So, and I'm still fine-tuning. And I live a lifestyle, in a rural place, and we go to the hot springs. And I have changed my lifestyle many times, completely saying, you know what, this is making me sick. This is making me depressed. I can't live this way. You know, I've struggled with depression over my whole life. And what I realize about depression, it's telling me that I'm not happy with my life. Therefore, how can I have a life that would make me happy? What would make me happy? And then doing that, right? So I've made those choices throughout my life. Now, someone who didn't listen to that for a longer, who ends up with severe health issues in the womb, severe health symptoms, that's a longer time, and that might require big releasing of what's going on, a lot of support, and possibly some big changes. And that might, and they might need to happen gradually, those big changes, in order for that healing to occur. And that's why, you know, many people get to, like, I did big changes in my life and the direction of my life at my first Saturn return, which is where who you're meant to be and your soul purpose, represented by Saturn, the structures of your life that set up you to be able to live your soul purpose, gets strongly lit up. And anything that doesn't fit in that becomes a source of pain. And many people restructure their life between the age of 27 to 33 because of that. They may end relationships, they may change jobs, they may change profession, they may move where they're living, and reorienting towards the things that are really important to them. And I did that in a big way at that time of my life. I was trying to be a school teacher, and I realized, no, I needed to be in the healing arts. So I moved location. I went to a place that would nourish me and support me to be in the healing arts, doing massage therapy and teaching yoga and all of that. I also knew that I needed to change my diet and upgrade my spiritual and physical health practices, my own yoga practice and my own meditation practice and all of that. And I needed to be someplace with clean air, clean water, and clean food available, and relationships with people that would support these lifestyle changes that were also interested in doing this. So I moved somewhere where all of those things would be. And I continued to follow those priorities over the course of the next 15, 20 years of my life. Now, often what happens, and definitely happened for me, is that we make those priority changes in that first Saturn return, but then the second one that comes around, they come around every 27 years, you know, so around midlife or even earlier, because if you paid attention to it, you kind of get familiar with the signs of when you're not quite lined up with your soul purpose. And so for me, my midlife crisis started to happen a little earlier than, in my early 50s. It happened more in my mid 40s because I could feel how there were certain aspects of the choices that I'd made and the structures in my life that I'd made that weren't lining up. And my womb started to tell me with early menopausal symptoms. And I listened to that because I had learned early on that my womb was a messenger about my overall health and well-being. And so I listened to that and made big choices and changes based on that to stay aligned with my soul purpose in my life. And those early menopausal symptoms stopped. So it had to do with the location of where I was at. It had to do with my relationship. And now it's just a matter of this fine tuning in the relationship where we're learning. Now I'm learning to include my husband in that process in ways that works. And there may be a time when I do get to my Saturn return that there is my second Saturn return, that there is a bigger change than that needs to happen. But I'm paying attention to fine tuning it along the way so that it doesn't have to be this big blowout, because I've done a lot of that. And so, but if we didn't, depending on how much alignment we got in that first Saturn return, that determines how much change and how much wellness we've achieved, we've been able to return to, because our body has a basic wellness that it wants to return to, a healthy homeostasis, if it has all the nourishment, and if our spirit purpose, our soul purpose, if we're in alignment with that, we're designed, we chose just the right body for that soul purpose. Then we're going to be able to have, if we're aligned with that, my feeling is that the womb will be healthier and in more optimum health, and our whole body will be in more optimum health. Now, this is definitely different for people who might have a severe chronic illness or injury. It might be that there's a level of acceptance if somebody was born with a severe illness or, developed a severe illness. That might just be part of the soul purpose journey of that person. But womb ailments particularly are definitely a sign, and there can be healing around that, even if it goes back generations, that includes this. Let's make this revolution by looking at our lives and saying, wait a second, we can create a different lifestyle for ourselves. We have that power. We can create a different type of relationship structure. We can say no to relationships that deplete us. We can do all of that and create a revolution in our very own lives. And I'm so proud of some of the clients I've been talking to about this, because they're making those choices. They're seeing that. And I just want to appreciate and acknowledge, if you're listening to this and you're hearing yourself in what I'm saying, and you're noticing that you've made some difficult choices, but in the direction of honoring your own sovereignty, honoring your own well-being, and nourishing yourself, I want to celebrate you for doing so. And I want to encourage you, if you are struggling with this, where you feel like, gosh, you've tried this protocol and that treatment protocol and nothing seems to be working, and yet deep down inside you know that perhaps there's a change, something you need to ask for in your relationships, in your work environment, some different way that you could set up your life. I want to encourage you to look in those directions. Look at the water that you drink. Is it clean? Do you have a good water filter? Look at the food that you're eating. Are you eating meat from the meat industry? Are you eating animals that were raised humanely without drugs and toxic input? Are you eating enough fruits and vegetables, organic? Are you eating sugar still and other grains and legumes that have been raised with GMO modifications? Or are you paying attention to that? You know, we can just be so onslaughted with toxins in our diet that this can often be a big change in how you do things in your habits. You know, if you're still eating at any kind of fast food restaurant ever, that's to be considered. And if you eat out a lot at mainstream restaurants, that's to be considered. You know, a lot of places don't have restaurants that serve organic, that purchase organic produce and healthy, have healthy sourcing of their ingredients. And if you eat out a lot, then you're just eating conventional foods laced with drugs and pesticides and herbicides. And so that adds up. And then looking at the skin products, your home cleaning products, you know, your detergents and cleaning products, that's another added, your cosmetics, these are all more added toxins in the system, how much plastics you use in the home, and it can feel overwhelming for sure. And this is just on the physical eliminating toxins level. And then we've got to get the right nutrients in. So these are big changes and can take a long time to have, of really doing it, the whole thing, to have the results we need. And then on top of that, being surrounded by people who give you as much as you give to them, and having the ongoing refinement of those relationships as well, and striking a balance with that, and being in alignment and having our energies throughout the day being balanced in how we apply our energies and that they're in alignment, that's in alignment with our soul purpose, and that we're nourishing ourselves enough on all levels to express that soul purpose. So that is a lot. That could mean big changes for you. And in order to really do all that changes, it could take some time, and it would need lots of support and help and potentially guidance, or at least encouragement to keep going when you have those moments of, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this and I still feel awful. Well, that's a sign. It's not that your body is bad or that you're a failure. It's just a sign that there's some other aspect you haven't seen yet, or haven't incorporated yet, or haven't faced as an important aspect yet. You know, we get it, especially the relational piece. We get in these patterns of relating that are very difficult to see for ourselves. And everyone we're relating to, you know, we're all kind of in the pattern together and no one can really see it. And so that can be a very challenging piece to understand. And, you know, so I just wanted to impart to everyone listening how revolutionary it is when we start to prioritize womb wellness, and how it could change everything in your life, what you eat, what you drink, you know, how you rest, how you play, what you do for fun. That's another thing. A lot of people, clients that I've had, you know, I think I've even lost clients because I pointed out that perhaps some of the things that they were doing for fun weren't really nourishing them. I mean, they may be fun in a certain sense, but how was it, how did they feel in their energies afterwards? Were they depleted afterwards? Usually that was the case, and I've said that, and then they didn't want to let go of that thing that they doing for fun, I think, and didn't like that I told them that. So looking at what the things we do for fun are, and are they really nourishing us? Looking at all of these different aspects of our lives, how we nourish ourselves. And I'm doing this myself. I love gardening. I love growing my own herbs. I think it's really nourishing to me. My elbow, on the other hand, has a different opinion about it. And so I'm in an ongoing conversation with my elbow of like, look, I need to do all these tasks in order to get the herbs that are customized for my nutritional needs, to make sure I have the nutrition in the body so that the joints and everything are feeling happy. But that means I'm out there with the clippers and the shovel and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is really. And so the verdict is still out on that. Is all the gardening that I do as nourishing as I think it is for me? There's refinement to be had in that aspect of my lifestyle. So I just want to encourage you to really look at all of that and have compassion for yourself, especially when you get to those moments. And I need to do that too, because I get to those moments too where I say, I've been doing all this, and how come I haven't gotten to this goal yet? How come, I still feel this way sometimes? And I guess this is the message I need to hear too, is this is a major revolution that we're undergoing, of reprioritizing our womb wellness on all levels, and so many infinite inner aspects and outer aspects. And that those changes can take many, many moons, many cycles to implement themselves. So I just want to encourage you all to, and maybe we can all take a deep breath together and feel the magnitude of the changes and the excitement of that possible great revolution and remembering that we're all engaged in as we focus in and reprioritize womb wellness. And just feeling that coming home to the central power of our wombs to guide us. And the thrilling challenge of implementing that orientation in our daily lives with each other and in our societies, and the changes that we could possibly birth together as we reorient in this way. And just treating ourselves with loving care and compassion as we fumble along on this journey towards more wellness, and piece all the pieces back together that have been lost, singing to the bones, singing the flesh back on the bones. So thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of the Womb-Centered Healing Podcast. That's all for now. Until next time. And if you enjoyed this podcast and received benefit from it, I encourage you to subscribe. You can give a monthly financial contribution of your choice by hitting the subscribe button if you're listening on Anchor. You could also subscribe to the newsletter, the Womb-Centered Healing newsletter at wombcenteredhealing.com, and learn about becoming a monthly contributing member, where you would gain access to my courses and private one-to-one sessions with me, and eventually other courses with other womb-centered healing temple practitioners. And you can also subscribe, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel and receive notifications for when the next episode comes out. All right, take good care. Until next time.